Hello, this is the second of my poetry pamphlet reviews. I'm going to be looking at Miriam Nash and her 9 Mothers of Heimdallr. This pamphlet here, which is published by Hercules Press. It's not just poetry, there's also art by Christina Edlund Pletter, who happens to be Miriam Nash's mother, which is very apt, as we'll see as we look at the pamphlet. This is an example of the kind of thing that she does. Some of it is more figurative, some more abstract. And there's also a very good introduction by Dr. Johanna Katrin Fjordsdottir. Not sure if I pronounced that exactly right, but in any case, she's an expert in Norse myth. She looks at the background of the myth encapsulated in the poem, and also tries to explore the contemporary significance of the myth. And this conversation between the past and the present continues in the form, which is a loose iambic tetrameter. It's in quatrains. There's quite often rhyme in the poem, and it lends itself to thinking of poetry of the past, but also comes with a very contemporary idiom. The story is of the birth of the mysterious god Heimdallr, told to the child Heimdallr by his 9 mothers, which I'll come back to. The giants are the first living beings. They give birth to the gods, but the gods are encouraged to reject this whole idea, and that's symbolised by the god Odin killing the giant Ymir, whose body is in fact transformed into the earth that we live on. So a creation story born in violence and killing. And that gives rise immediately to a theme of myth. Who controls the myth? Whose version of history are we getting? The poem tells the story of creation from the void, from Ymir. Odin himself comes from this, but Odin claimed to be a god. But how were gods different from the giants when he was born from giants? The child Heimdallr asks this question, what is a god? And the mothers answer, a name, child, a name that grew and gathered height. Who made the gods? They made themselves with stories whispered in the night. So, Odin is in a sense creating a myth for himself in which truth is unimportant, as long as people believe it. A very modern problem, which has perhaps always been with us. Heimdallr was born in blood, from the wound opened up by Odin murdering Ymir, and that is Miriam Nash's imaginative idea to explain these 9 mothers, which isn't in the original myth, but it's certainly a good way of explaining it, I think. Through the blood and through the flood we swam and carried you, say the 9 mothers. Is the child a god or a giant? Odin his father, 9 giants his mothers? Perhaps identity is more complicated than we imagine. All the boxes we put people in, all the narrow restrictions we create for them. Perhaps what's important is who we are, in all our complexity, independent of others' demands and expectations and definitions, from whatever perspective these come from. In page 32 of this book, we read Heimdallr saying, I don't want to be a god, I don't want to be half. Ymir was mother, father, child. Both might be your path. So on one hand, you've got power and violence and division and coercion. And from the other side, you've got nurture, resistance, love and choice. The poem is a counter to a dominant narrative of history and myth. It's the story of gods and giants from these ancient Norse stories, pointing to a more fulfilling way to be human.